Hello, everyone. So today we have amongst us Mr. Shankar Sharma, who is the founder of First Global. Mr. Shankar Sharma needs no introduction. And before taking any time, I would straight away, leave it to Mr. Shankar Sharma to give us his insights on today's, on current unprecedented times. So at present, equity markets, economy in India and worldwide, is extremely uncertain. And at these times, we would like to hear from you, Mr. Sharma. What are your views with regards to economy, with regards to valuations, with regards to various sectors? And over to you.
Thank you, Kamal. Thank you for having me here. Can you hear me? Everything is audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. So, let's get one thing clear, that people talk about a bear market in India as if it has happened only in February and in March of 2020. The reality is a little different and a little harsher. If you go back to the post-budget situation of 2019, I think the budget was in July, and the markets actually crashed. I think the Sensex fell from around 39,000-40,000 to about 32,000 back in July, August itself. And then the government came up with this plan for cutting corporate tax rates, which then led to a rally of sorts in which the market went to 40,000. But that was led only by the private sector banks and the FMCG companies. It was not a broad rally. It just was basically a rally that told you that only the companies benefiting directly from this corporate tax cut will be the companies that will go up, and that's exactly what happened. But because they were relatively higher weights, those stocks were pulled up, and they pulled up the market in return. Now, in reality, 2018 was again a terrible year for India. The Nifty was up some 2-3%. The broad market, I think the mid-cap index was down maybe 25%. In 2019, Nifty was up 8-9%, mid-caps or small caps were up about 2-3%. So what you're seeing is not a bear market that has started just now. India has been in a bear market for the last couple of years. Only 5, 10, 12 stocks have been doing well. And now, because of this sudden, really in a lot of senses, unforeseen crisis, you're seeing the big part of the market which was going up, which was banks and financials, they have now basically started to crack, and they were around 40% of the index. So imagine this, that 40% of the index, which was driving most of the earnings growth, is now suddenly faced with a situation wherein you will forget about earnings growth. You're going to see big losses on their loan books. Anybody with even basic common sense will know that any business that has loans to repay is in no position to repay those loans. Not even the best of companies can pay loans back. Forget about loans. You can't even pay suppliers. So today there was a message from a very large company, one of the best companies India has had for decades, telling its suppliers that we cannot pay you money right now. Just today, we have to extend it by 30 days. At the end of 30 days, who knows whether they can pay or not. If this is a quality company with no debt, unable to pay its dues to its suppliers, imagine a company with debt. What on earth is it going to tell its lenders? Just going to say, sorry, I cannot pay you. So the market that you see in India, now everybody looking at the global markets yesterday said India is going to do well today. Look at how India ended, right? That itself is telling you another story, that the banks and financials, the NBFCs are in deep trouble. And that is the unfortunate reality. We as portfolio managers, we saw this coming in the first week of February itself, because when this corona thing started to gain some momentum, we did some basic analysis. It told us that, look, this thing is a little bit more serious than just a flu as what most people thought it would be. It's a little bit more serious, and hence one should be careful. And if you want to be careful in markets, first of all, cut the risk in your portfolio. So the riskiest part is financials. we had no financials, and we basically raised cash. We had defensives. So that really helped us a lot in navigating February and March. And then, of course, we added gold, we added G-Secs. So we kind of diversified out of just pure equities. We kept a more asset allocation approach, which is again another big learning that has come out of this whole thing, this whole episode, that you simply cannot be all equity player and hope to survive in markets. So the situation for India, in particular banks and financials, is not looking good. And I have all sympathy for this space because it's not their fault. You've lent to good companies. But if overnight, if let's say you lend to a multiplex chain, right? We know them. They're all good companies, right? And multiplex have been doing very well. People are going to movies. Suddenly there are no movies. There are no multiplex, there are no crowds. How can that company pay back debt? It's not possible. So this is a huge shock. And if anybody thinks that this is just a small little fever that will go away, I think one needs to be very realistic.
Sure. So, what is the downside, from these levels? Markets have already corrected almost 25% from its peak. So what are the, what is the further downside that you see from current levels? So if you have to give a foresight for, say, guidance to the audience for, say, next 3 months, what are your thoughts?
So, there's no point trying to forecast a Nifty or a Sensex. We don't do that. I mean, I don't think anybody should do that. One should only have a strategy. Times are difficult. That doesn't mean there is nothing to be done. In difficult times is when your skills as an investment manager are tested. And the skills are that of asset allocation, skills are that of risk management, skills are how much weight are you putting under each on each position. So definitely there is downside to this market. This market is not finished yet. The downside will largely come from the banks and financials. The downside is relatively less in the non-banks and non-financial spaces. So as an investor, one needs to be cognizant where the problem areas are, avoid them, and try and stay as safe as possible. Again, investing is not necessarily a game in which every year you have to try and go and look for a sixer out of the stadium. There are times when you simply need to play defensively. This is one of those situations. You need to play a more defensive game than what you would play if once, things are great, life is good, everything is back to normal. Then the time to play a good aggressive game happens. Today is the time to basically play a defensive game, play out the overs. Never mind if you don't make runs, don't get out. That's the simple message I would like to give anybody watching this webinar.
So can you please elaborate that, because the audience comprises of such investors also who are not very informed. So when you're talking about, stay away from cyclicals and invest in defensives, can you please elaborate with certain sectors and stocks?
So by and large, if you can you see me? Yeah. No, I think the picture went away in the middle. So think about it. If you view investing as a strategy of allocation, banks and financials are around 35% of the index, right? Other than that, you have Reliance, which is a big part of the index. Think about where in this whole thing are the gainers. So obviously, companies that are going to make, medicines that you want to consume, they are gainers. Obviously, companies that are going to make some staples that you want to consume, they are going to be gainers. Companies that, we are having a call right now using certain raw material being supplied by certain companies, which is data, those companies will be winners. So we have to think strategically which companies will benefit out of this problem area. I don't want to take names, but I think the names are pretty obvious. The other thing also remember is anybody who tells you and anybody in the audience is being told that taking concentrated bets is the right thing to do, which means that you buy just 5 stocks or 8 stocks and 10 stocks. That's the most irresponsible piece of advice anybody can give to investors. Investing is not about taking huge bets of 10% on a single position. Investing is about buying, at least 15, 20 positions, not more than 5%, keeping certain sectoral allocations in place, taking a portfolio approach rather than a stock by stock approach. Yeah, acha lagta hai, chalo, let's put like 10, 20% into this. That is a recipe for disaster, because fact is you don't know what's going to happen in the future. Companies can change overnight. We have seen good companies become terrible companies overnight, right now, as we speak. Therefore, you need to approach the whole game of investing as a portfolio management game, not as a game of usne phone karke bola chalo ye le lo, usne phone karke bola wo le lo. Even if you have to do that, see where it fits into your overall portfolio. Never have 4, 5, 6 stocks. Have 15, 20, 25 names. Make sure you're not exposed to any particular sector or types of companies. Diversify your holdings. Everybody knows this, but nobody practices it, because we all end up forgetting these things, when times are good. It's only in bad times that we remember these things. We are in a troubled situation. Let's go back to the basics. Let's have a portfolio approach to investing rather than getting bombarded by brokers. Ye chalne wala ye le lo, kal ko wo chalne wala wo le lo. That is never going to work. I can tell you, I've done this a long time. That is a one-way ticket to hell.
Sure. So, I'll just tell you the kind of questions that we are receiving. So the first comment which came is there to congratulate you, because, you recently started your portfolio management services in February, and the very first month you have, outshined, and your performance has been fine. It's, definitely far better than many others.
I must add one more thing, Kamal, before, so February, March is one thing, but I was looking at our numbers for this month, April. So in April, I think the Nifty is up about 3.5%, if I'm not mistaken. And we are up around 11% in this month, which is a month which is an up month. So we saved money in the down month. We didn't lose much money. But in the month in which the market has done well, relatively well, which is April, we are up more than 2.5 times that of the market. So just to let you know that one particular fact also.
Right. So, maybe, you had an advantage because you started in February and you were sitting on cash when markets had fallen. So you were able to
No.
Because most people think like that.
No, not at all. We were invested. We got out of investment, got into cash. In fact, we also went from cash, from equities into other asset classes. So that's exactly the point I'm making. You cannot be a one-trick pony and hope to make money. That is not going to work. And you give me another 25% down market, I will still beat it. There's no big deal, as long as you do it commonsensically.
Right. So, you rightly mentioned that one should not follow a concentrated approach, one should follow a portfolio approach, and one should not put everything in one asset class, one should diversify across asset classes. So taking this ahead, and you were right in mentioning that no point making a short-term opinion about markets. So for investors who today want to invest, they're sitting on liquidity, or investors who are earlier invested into equity and maybe they want to add on to equity, what is your suggestion, and how do you see those investments panning out over a period of, say, next 3 years? If not maybe 3 months, then medium term opinion. What is your medium term opinion about equity markets?
So, as I said, equity market is not one equity market. There are going to be two equity markets. There's going to be a very problematic equity market, which is what we are seeing right now. Companies with debt, companies with leverage are just going to get decimated in this. On the other hand, one can still get some companies, not a lot, which we have, by the way, where you can at least make above market returns even in this troubled time. And that is, like I said, that's the attempt right now in fund management, that we need not be aggressive at all the times. It's like, if anybody has played cricket, and I'm sure everybody watching this show plays cricket or knows about cricket, that when you look at a pitch, it's not a 300-run pitch. It's more a 150-run pitch. This is a 150-run pitch. This is not a 300-run pitch. So I will not go out playing the way I would play in a normal 300-run wicket, where I will go play my shots and hope to get a century. This is a game in which you make 30 not out, you have actually come out ahead.
Sure. So how do you justify the valuations of some of the staple and FMCG stocks at present, like for example HUL, Nestle, and likewise? So when you're saying that you would want to have a different approach where you see adding such stocks and such sectors against maybe financials which are down 30-40%. So don't you think these valuations of these FMCG companies are also higher? Again, I'm spelling out the questions, just reading out what audience is asking.
So yeah, so let me give you some historical perspective. All these companies that you mentioned, and we have some, we don't have a lot, to be honest with you. So in our current portfolio, we don't have like 25 names which are these 80 PE companies. We have maybe 2 or 3 names. So it's not that we have gone out and bought everything that is highly valued. Just to be clear, but go back in time, even 25 years back, a Lever or a Nestle or a P&G, Gillette, all were 60, 80, even 150 times earnings, even 25 years back. So these stocks have remained expensive for very, very long. And I don't think they're going to become cheap unless the numbers really become terrible. Like ITC used to be 50 PE stock. Now it is more probably like in the mid-teens, right? So it can change, but it's a long time before these kind of high valuation change for these companies. And I think the reason for that is these companies generate very high returns on their capital. These companies don't have debt. These companies generate a lot of free cash flow. And in India, where very few companies have these kinds of businesses, there's just a scarcity value for all these companies. There are hardly 10, 15 companies of this kind. So the market just runs after them like crazy, and it has been doing for 25 years. But just to be clear, we don't have too many of these guys in our portfolio.
Right. So in one of your portfolio schemes, you have exposure to gilts as well as gold.
Yes.
Right. So can you please elaborate your view, to both of these asset classes?
So our view was that in the year 2020, gold will do better than equities. Okay. So we and so far, if you see the numbers, and the other view we had very clear view that rupee was going to depreciate and depreciate sharply, and that has gone from whatever 68, 69 to now 76, and I think it is going to go down further for sure. So consistent with that view, we took exposure to gold. Second, we also believed that relative to equities, G-Secs would do better on 2 counts. Number one, it's going to give me 6%. Okay. We did not think at the beginning of the year that equity markets in India will give you 6% without too much volatility. So we said, all right, G-Secs look good. Second, we said that there is scope for rate cuts. Again, that has played out. I'm not saying, any one of these pie charts is perfect. You just need to have the correct allocations between them and dynamically change it. Things change. Whatever I'm saying today may not be valid 2 months from now, just to be clear. And that is the one thing that we believe in as our central thinking. Keep yourself flexible, keep yourself open. Don't get so convinced about your idea that you cannot unconvince yourself. Don't get so attached to your view that you cannot detach yourself. Our model is a man plus machine model. Our models will tell us something, we will analyze it, we will implement it. But hey, 3 months from now, if things change, we would have changed. That is what separates us with a lot of other money managers who have very rigid philosophies. And sometimes the philosophies do okay, but when it stops doing okay, you're suddenly saying, what do I do now? That's not the way we have ever done things. And we've been in the business for a very long time. We've seen cycles, and that's a central learning. Keep things open. Don't get too attached to anything.
Right. So if there is an investor who wants to deploy 100 rupees into equity, how would you allocate that 100 rupees? The investor has a horizon of 5-year plus. So you are saying that one should not concentrate, and so how would you allocate in terms of various asset classes and maybe various sectors?
So in terms of asset class allocations, it's clear, equity should not have more than 30% in your portfolio right now. At least 30% should be in gold, because I see the rupee going to 85, 90. So your gold in India will become definitely around 55,000 in the next few months, maybe a year's time. So I definitely will want to have 20-30% gold, 30% equity, and the balance will be in fixed income. I will not be wanting to buy corporate debt, which is very, very risky, extremely risky, because in this environment, even good companies will default on their debt. Forget about the second, third, fourth tier companies. So stick to the government of India's paper. At least that amongst all the choices is the least worst option. Even though we know the government's deficits will be out of control, the government will need to raise more money. So, the yields will the prices will come down, yields will go up, but at least you will have return of your money. So right now, return of capital is more important than return on capital. So that's a broad pie chart we would have as of right now.
Right. So you mentioned, 30% into equity, and then how much percentage into, you said nothing to corporate debt, and instead of corporate debt, one should put into maybe government debt, so government
Yes.
securities. So can you please elaborate in terms of percentages? So your allocation.
So basically, like I said, that 30, and then in gold another 30 and around 40 in the G-Secs. Why not more in gold? Because gold is a relatively more volatile asset. Sometimes in a week it can fall 10% also. So you have to balance your greed with the realization that you cannot go all into a single asset like gold to the extent of 40-50% of your portfolio. So keep it not more than 30, equity not more, because both these are very, very volatile, and G-Secs at least are relatively less volatile. So keep them around 40.
Right. And the 30 rupees that we are allocating to equity, so how would you, help the audience by just giving your, selection of sectors and percentages to that?
So, I mean, again, remember one thing that, I don't want to give any advice or anything, because this is not the forum. And my job here is only to give our thinking and not to advise people, because that's a risky thing, and even regulatorily that's not permitted. So, please go ahead and consult your financial advisors or investment managers to get that advice. This is what we are doing for our clients. That's all I can tell you. I mean, there's nothing that I'm saying that people watching this should go and do this at home, because things are dynamic, things change, and we would have changed, but obviously anybody watching this will not have the benefit of that change unless they are directly talking to us. So I've given you the broad pie charts, but explaining a little bit, and I've told you that obviously telecom is okay, and some sectors of pharma are okay, some sectors of some export oriented areas are okay, but within that, making it very, very, very micro then becomes risky for the viewer, because he's not getting the entire picture, and we are not allowed to give the entire picture.
Right. So if there's a very interesting question asked by someone. If you are to think in a positive manner, at the moment it is very difficult for everybody to think in a positive manner. If you suppose that you have to think in a positive manner, from where do you see the hope coming in? Because things have certainly become negative, valuations were certainly expensive. There were a lot of fund managers who could not see it. You have been a fine fund manager that you could see it. So that is right. We understood that. But now from here on, it's absolutely visible that things are going to become worse from today's scenario. But as you said, things can change overnight. If things have to change in a positive direction, how would that happen?
So the only way it can change is if the government comes out and announces like a 5% of GDP kind of stimulus, like the US has done. And just so that you guys know, after yesterday's close, NASDAQ is flat for the year. Flat. Do you understand that? In this kind of a market, the NASDAQ has not lost anything this year from January 1st till today. So why is that happened? And that's happened because of the stimulus that the US has given. A massive stimulus. India needs to do that. Without that, just hoping that things will become better is nothing but a hope trade. We all live in hope. We all want to be optimistic, but we should be realistic. Like I said, the pitch, when you go out as a captain to do the toss, you're reading the pitch. You have to read it accurately. You cannot say, I'm hoping that I'll get 300. You read the pitch, you pick your side to suit that pitch. If things improve because the sun comes out, pitch dries out, hey, that's great. That's perfect. So the equivalent of sun coming out today will be the government coming out with a huge relief package. By the way, extending it to NBFCs, because NBFCs are in deep trouble. We all see the stock prices. We can know where it is going. Banks have been given certain concessions. NBFCs have not been given that. It's a lopsided structure right now. The government needs to help the NBFC sector. The government needs to come out and make a big, bold stimulus announcement. If that happens, hey, things will change for sure, like it has changed for the US market.
Right. So in your opinion, there is a subsequent question. In your opinion, does government have the space to announce such a big stimulus like 5% of GDP, which is like 10 lakh crore? Is it possible for Indian government?
No, it is not possible.
Okay.
But the question was if you want to be optimistic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The question, so the guy who asked the question said, if you want to think optimistically, what would you think? Correct?
Right. Right.
I'm being optimistic. I want to say that I want 5%. You're asking a question, or the next question is that of realism.
Right.
The answer is no, it's not possible.
Right. 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 And then, the subsequent question comes that within your asset allocation chart, does that mean that apart from 30% to Indian equity and maybe 30% to gold and remaining to government securities, should one also consider adding some overseas, some US equities as an exposure?
So a lot of our clients have significant, we have, since we manage money globally, so we have got them into, from last year itself, into a lot of non-India investments, not just equities, but in other asset classes as well across the world. So last year we were up 40% on our global portfolios, 40% in dollar terms. So, and this year itself, we have done very well. I mean, I think on the US side, China, so we have China, we have US, some other markets, so we have advised our clients to actually, if you have 100 rupees, invest 70 abroad and 30 within India. That's the kind of pie chart shift our clients have got right now. And only 30 of their equity exposures are in India, 70 is actually abroad. And that is working brilliantly. But it's a difficult one. Again, please understand, I'm not saying go out there and do things. It's a tricky market. People don't have enough knowledge. That is what we are telling our client. But please, again, with the caveat that this is not meant for the average viewer that you can just go out there and do it. Because again, things are volatile even in the US. Things are volatile in China. It's a certain level of active management that is required. So please don't take this literally and go out there and start buying, stocks globally. That's a tricky thing at best. Even for us, it is very, very tricky. Look at company, look at the risk, look at the balance sheet, look at the currency exposure. There are a million things one needs to do in order to find 15, 20, 30 good stocks worldwide. So, I just want to caution the viewers that it's not simple. It's not even simple to do Indian equities, let alone, foreign equities.
Right. Right. I'm just, reading out a few more questions. So, there is a fundamental question, we have been talking about now certain risks of not doing on one's own. That is right. But fundamentally, investors are being taught for many years that there is a power of compounding if one is able to find out right companies which have right business models, which have right management, and which are considered to be quality businesses. And, when times are such as they are today, one should be greedy in, like there is a phrase of Mr. Warren Buffett, who has, given all these power of compounding oriented, convincing phrases that when everybody is fearful, one should be greedy. So do you think, at present one can behave like that? And if this is an opportunity for those investors who have 10, 15 years of time horizon?
Yeah, I mean, that way you can say this at any point from 1900 till today. But by following Warren Buffett, more people have gone bankrupt rather than have become rich. Because he has worked in a certain market, which is the US, which over decades has been the best performing market in the world. So, and by the way, even Warren Buffett last 20 years has got nothing right. He's got almost everything wrong. He has missed out the entire consumer technology boom. He never bought Apple. He, for the first 15 years, bought Apple when the stock had already gone up 70, 80 times. Never bought Amazon, never bought Google, never bought Microsoft. So Warren Buffett had his time till the mid 90s. After that, people are still in India following him. But the fact of the matter is the world has moved on. The reality is that, yes, bad situations are good places to go out and buy good businesses. For sure. If you are that smart, by all means do it. I mean, that's a simple thing. If you're that clear that this business will survive that long, like Maruti was a great business 3 years back, right? Today, do you want to buy Maruti? No. ITC, the cash spewing business for like 30, 40 years that I have seen. Why is the stock halved? So it's good to go out and get these businesses, but take a portfolio approach. Do not go and buy 3 good companies. Warren Buffett, like I said, has spoiled most of us in terms of our thinking. The reality is that by following, it has worked for him. And that too, it worked for him 25 years back. It stopped working for him also because he became a private equity player. He never buys stocks anymore, and whatever he has bought has been absolute rubbish. So let's not copy anybody. Take a portfolio approach. Buy 15, 20 companies. Don't buy just 5 companies because you have no idea where there are going to be problems in the future. Who could have said that Maruti would be at these prices? Did anybody know? Did I know? No. So don't put all your eggs in a few baskets. Diversify your baskets. Diversify them within India. Diversify them globally. Diversify across asset classes. Do not believe in the power of concentration, because it might work for 1 out of 100 people. For 99 people, it will ruin. It will decimate your income and your wealth.
Right. So we did see, market making its lows on 23rd March, and then from there on, it started gradually going up, and then it remained around 8,000 levels, and then it suddenly went up 24% from around, the lower levels of 7,700. So what do you think has drived market when everything has been bad, things have been coming worse? The coronavirus cases in US have become from bad to worse. But despite that, we have seen even Dow Jones recovering so sharply. In India also, we have seen the recovery. So what has led to the recent recovery?
No, so we have had a vertical fall in February and in March. So you will have technical corrections. I mean, it happens all the time. It doesn't mean that fundamentally something has changed for the better. It only means markets had a huge, unprecedented, 25, 30% fall in a month and a half is unprecedented. But, with that, you can't expect another 20% to happen in April. Okay, that's being, very, very immature. The reality is that when something falls down so sharply, you will see, kind of technical rallies. And we have seen exactly that. We should not try and say that it is something very, very unheard of ever. In every market, like even in a bull market, you will see sharp corrections downwards, right? It doesn't keep going up every single day. Likewise, in a bear market, you're seeing a corrective rally. That's pretty much what it is.
Right. So this is the last 2-3 questions. So if someone is already around 80 to 85% in equity, so any piece of suggestion for that person?
So our suggestion, again, without getting too specific, is that please keep a diversified portfolio. I'm repeating this. Again, like I said, I started this game when I was 17. Okay. And that was a long time back. That was in the early 80s. So I've done this a very long time. And I know that the single biggest ticket to going bankrupt is concentration. And because you are concentrated, you are in love with your positions. You are attached to your positions. And you can't let them go, even though you're seeing the trouble right in front of you. A truck is coming and you cannot swerve out of the dangerous way because you're so focused on listening to good music. That is to be avoided at all costs. Don't fall in love with your stocks. Practice very strict risk management. I'm telling you, these are nothing new things that I'm saying, but people forget these things. even professional investors, mutual funds. How can a mutual fund or a PMS be down 30%? It's not possible. I can understand you can be down 10%, 15%. That's fine. 30%, 35%, that means they have no risk control at all. And you are professional investors. People listening in are individuals. So please let this message come from me to all people listening in. Keep diversified portfolios and do not fall in love with anything. If something hits a stop loss, you're out of the trade. As simple as that.
Right. So, you have been doing this since 1980s, but the average age of the audience is around 40 who are, attending this webinar. So, for them, they have seen last big correction, which happened in 2008. And there is a lot of literature which is being circulated on social media, which tries to differentiate 2020 from 2008 by giving a lot of numbers, that the price to book numbers and price to earning numbers and market cap to GDP numbers are totally different in 2020, and they are far more positive than they were in 2008. So what are your views in this regards?
So in India, I don't understand how anybody is able to forecast numbers, because even companies don't know what next quarter, next 9 months sales, forget about profits, are going to be. So in social media, a lot of things go around. Most of it is junk. I'm again repeating, there is money to be made in every market, including today's market. All right. But it is not a 300-run pitch. Play for 150 runs, remain not out with 30, 40, 50 runs. You are good for this time. Good times will come. As long as you've not gotten out, you will be okay for your next innings. So buy stocks by all means. Do a lot of more research. Don't get carried away by all the nonsense social media. Build diversified portfolio. Practice strict risk management. Don't fall for hype, because remember, our business of equities is basically driven by hype. Okay, nobody in this world comes and tells you don't buy equity, buy gold. Why? Because to buy gold, you don't need to pay anybody any commission, right? If there's no commission, why is anybody going to recommend buying gold? The reality is gold has done far better than equities. My point is, look, I'm not here to give stories or give lies. That's not the way we do business. We know reality. Reality is tough. We will find a way to get the best out of that. Like I said, in April, we are up 12% versus Nifty up 3.5%. So we are doing it. Hey, it's possible to make money. But just listening to this webinar, I can't obviously talk many things because, I'm not allowed to by regulation. But all I'm saying is be careful and extra careful, and don't fall for all these messages on social media and all that. They don't mean anything at all. Buy 25 good companies, 20 good companies. Don't keep more than 5% in any company. Get your good stop losses in place. I think you will come out of it very well.
So, there are a lot of investors who have been asking questions that, should we kind of exit equity? Should we enter into gold? So, so I would like you to conclude maybe in last 2-3 minutes and give your, disclaimers as well for the audience, so that everybody understands the right perspective in which you have given all your suggestions.
No, the first of all disclaimer is that I'm not advising anybody to do anything. Please understand that. To buy this or sell that or do anything of that. So that's not, I'm just giving you our learnings or our approach, the way we do this business. All right. If you want to implement that, please by all means implement it, but take some advice of your advisor or whoever is advising you. So to come to the question, should you exit equities? The answer is absolutely no. That is the silliest thing you can do, to exit equities. Equities must have a place in your overall asset allocation. No piece of the pie chart should be zero. Okay. Like I said, in very good times, the 30% that I spoke about in equity should be like 50-60%. Times are a little troubled, therefore the allocation is at the lower end. Gold is looking good because the Indian currency looks weak. Okay, so you will make money on the currency side when you buy gold. And G-Secs, because that's the best debt option available. Do not buy corporate debt right now because companies are in trouble. So answer to the question, should we get out of equity? Absolutely no, no, no. But that 30% should be 15, 20 stocks, 25 stocks, carefully constructed portfolio, and very strong risk management. Don't forget the risk management part of it.
Sure. Thank you so much, for giving us your time, and it has been pleasure interacting with you. And thank you everyone for participating in this webinar. We will look forward to doing more. Thank you so much.
Thank you.